Hi folks, Jennifer Nelson here, founder of Scout Real Estate. Glad you're listening in. I created Pocket Hours podcast to elevate our game and help us all learn from the best. I have interviewed some of the top producers in our industry about best practices, among many other things. We also tackle industry issues and changes with great conversation from many of our leaders. And the best part is you get clock hours just for listening in. After you have listened to 3 episodes, just email info@scoutrealestate.com to answer a few easy questions for the interview, and you will receive your certificate. Meanwhile, enjoy listening and learning, and go out there and be the agent you would hire. Hi folks, Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours. I'm thrilled today because I get to interview my friend. How fun is that? Dave Warren and I go back a long time, at least 15, maybe more years. Met each other when we first worked at a Windermere office together in West Seattle, and have stayed in touch and become personal friends. Anyway, he's 20 years in the business, and I couldn't wait to interview him because he has such great knowledge to bring us. And a couple of the things that he talked about are start your connections early. Don't be afraid to let people know what you do for a living, especially those of you that are new in the business. Don't keep that to yourself. And then I think the other great point that he made, among many you'll get to hear, is despite the market, we can always sell houses. We can always help people. We can advise them. And so don't be afraid when other people are doom and gloom that, oh, the market's so bad, the interest rate here and that and the other. You can get out there and make houses happen for people. And that's the powerful part of our business. So here you go. Get ready to listen to Dave Warren. I'm excited today because I get to interview my longtime friend and longtime coworker, David Warren. Dave, thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, Jennifer, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, I want to tell the listeners that David and I go way back. I mean, long time back. We used to work in a Windermere office in West Seattle a long time ago. We got to know each other and became friends with he and his wife, Val, and then started Metropolis together a long time ago and have just stayed in touch. We live close by each other. He's taken care of my little dog, Teddy, before. He's been to my kids' birthday parties and baby showers and all the things over the years. So just really grateful for our friendship and excited to have the listeners hear from you today. So we're just going to launch right in. Here we go. Great. So Dave, Dave, tell us a little bit about pre-real estate Dave. So take us back. How long have you been doing this, by the way?
Real estate, this is my 20th year.
Ooh, all right.
So I can't believe it's been that long. It's gone by fast.
Yeah.
But this actually is, like I say, my third career. Right out of college, I worked in publishing. It was just a short period of time, 5 years. The company sold. I was looking for something else to do, and I relocated to Los Angeles. I had a good friend that worked in the film and television industry, and I went down there and worked in primarily television for 4 years. Got a little burnout from that. It was great, wonderful experience, and got to meet a lot of interesting people, and I really had a good time. But I came back to the Seattle area and had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I needed to move back. And of course, my idea at the time was I was going to write the Great American Screenplay. I really liked the film industry. I just didn't really want to work day to day in the film industry anymore. But I liked the idea, the concept of films. And so I was going to write the Great American Screenplay, but of course I needed to live. And I was looking for something to do. And real estate started seeming like kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah.
But mainly for 3 different reasons. One, the market was hot. This was 2004, I guess, 2003, 2004. Market was hot. Things were going great. Of course, that has your interests in general as just a person. Just it's always being talked about. I had a good friend that was a builder. Another good friend that was flipped houses. We didn't call it flipping back then. It was remodeled. We remodeled houses and sold them. But and I wouldn't be the person you would hire to swing a hammer. I would be the guy who would hit the nail, bend the nail. So I really couldn't help them out that way. But I did have a lot of marketing experience and sales experience under my belt. And I thought perhaps real estate could be something I could do. Actually, I love the flexibility that would give me time to work when I wanted to work and still travel when I wanted to travel and such. But the thing that really tipped the scale for me, right at that time, my parents were selling their house in Kirkland. It was an expensive home, a multi-million-dollar home property. And I was blown away by how much they were paying their real estate broker to
Hmm.
sell the house. It was more than I made in an entire year. And a light bulb went off and said, "Hey, maybe this is a career choice for me." And so I decided to go down that route, and I've never looked back. I've never written a great American screenplay. Obviously, I have written screenplays, but a long time ago. I really enjoy real estate, all aspects of it, and I'm glad I'm here. And it's built an entire community of people that I love being around, both in the real estate industry and in friends and family and clientele.
You were part of the film industry, which I've always found like an interesting part of your background. And you've written some screenplays. And what I'm always curious about when I'm interviewing for different brokers is how do you think your past lives, your other two careers, have played into or strengthened your real estate career? So this one's going to be a fun one because I want to hear how screenplay writing or movie background making has helped you with real estate.
Certainly, the publishing aspect of my previous life has had a huge impact because I was sales and marketing. I understood page layout. I understood impression, getting where people's eyes move on a page when they look at something. So putting marketing pieces together was easy for me to do. Writing copy was something easier for me to do. The sales aspect of it, a different type of sales for sure, but just understanding in general how that process works. I understand the business aspect of sales. A lot of people who get into real estate, and actually I should rephrase that. I really hate when people say get into real estate. It sounds like they're
Okay.
trying a hobby, but
Uh
when
huh. Uh
they
huh.
they make a career choice to to sell real estate. The film part of it is something I really would like to explore more. So many agents now are shooting videos, shooting these things, and it's really proven from a social media perspective that as long as you get something out there, it's impactful. It doesn't have to be perfect. The sound doesn't have to be great. The video doesn't great. People watch anything. They like humor. That's annoying. But there's so much I could do in that realm because I understand the production of it. I understand how to edit videos. I understand how to do all this stuff. I just haven't done it. And it's mainly because I'm not really somebody who wants to be in front of the camera. I'm the behind the camera person. I could actually help people do their stuff, and maybe I could have a side career or a retirement career doing something like that. And a lot of it is there's so much time that goes into that production
So true.
that I haven't been able to justify because I know what I'll do. I'll get obsessed with it, and I'll go down that rabbit hole of just making videos for social media content and being obsessed with my likes and how many views I've had on Google or on YouTube and whatever. That Val will ask me, "Are you going to sell a house again?" Because well,
Yeah.
it's all going to lead to something
Yeah,
someday.
come on. Yes,
But
eventually. Totally. Yeah.
but I really should explore more of that.
Yeah, I think you'd be great at it. And I have found in watching you, sort of following you on the socials, that you've been sort of cutting edge in terms of things like I remember a long time ago you did a stick figure or a whiteboard something something, meet Dave. And sort of it
Hmm.
went through like getting to know you, and it was this drawing and it was moving and there were different words and we were all like, woo, because at the time that was what was the rage and you were on top of it. And so people get to know you without necessarily your face being on the screen and talking. And you've been
Yeah.
really good, I think, at performing on that level, people getting to know you. So that's fun.
It's interesting you brought that up because the whiteboard video is because I didn't want to be in front of the camera.
Okay, there
It
you
didn't
go.
have to be. I could just, I wrote the content and created it and put it out there. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would be excited to see you dip into that. And I can understand Val's hesitancy in keeping you because you're like, this is fun. Let's do this. I just interviewed a woman, another broker, who she said the majority of her time when she's not showing houses is creating content for social media. That's all she does.
Oh, absolutely. And there certainly are brokers who that's what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the time that goes into that
Yeah.
and the production quality they have. They spend a lot of time doing it, and
Yeah.
it's hopefully it will pay off for them.
Yeah,
But I
definitely.
also I also know brokers that do nothing.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I don't mean nothing. I mean do nothing marketing wise, social media wise, or there's just old fashioned pick up the phone and call people, and it
Yeah,
really pays off for them. They're still
that's true.
connecting. It's
That's right.
just in an old school way of doing it.
Yep. That's definitely more me for sure. And I will say that's the beauty of our industry, I think, is that you figure out your connection points and run with it. And you don't have to be like the person next door, right? Because they're doing it their way and it's working for them. Doesn't mean you have to copy it. So, okay, so take me back, Dave. So you are brand new. You decide you're going to start a career, not get into real estate. We started our career in real estate because we need to have food with our meals, right? We want to actually eat. Take us back to that first year. What do you think you did well, and what would you say I wouldn't do that again?
I'm the classic person to talk to and what not to do the first year or two of
Okay.
your career. I had just moved back from Los Angeles. I'd been away for a number of years. I'm not a naturally social person. I don't naturally network in community wise. I wouldn't say I burn bridges, but I just kind of like let connections go. This is, really the internet existed, but we didn't have the connections that we have now, the social media connections that we have now. How easy it is to stay in touch with people. But I had kind of distanced myself from a lot of people because when I left to go to Los Angeles, I wasn't coming back. I mean, it wasn't like I stayed in touch. I had my handful of really close friends that I stayed in touch with, and I still am very close to those people. But I didn't want to be the person that came back into the community, got into a social network type sales environment, and starting to running around, hey, remember me? We remember we went to high school together.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I didn't network myself that first year. I relied on sign calls. I relied on floor time. I relied on open houses. I wanted to build a business without feeling the awkwardness of reconnecting with people who I hadn't really talked to in a long time. How I would do it differently today is when my advice to someone who's interested in a career in real estate is that at least during the time period that they're studying for the real estate exam, is to start your connections then, can reach out to people so that it happens before you enter the real estate world. So it doesn't feel as when you're connecting with people or going into coffee with people or whatever it is. I mean, it's easy to do now because of social media. You can
Yeah.
connect with people very easily. When I started, I didn't really have that advantage. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. I was also very fortunate. I think it happened in my first year. I worked in an office with an agent who was a listing agent for a number of different big developments. And she took a liking to me. She liked that I was a little more polished than the typical agent that came in the door. I mean, a lot of people get into real estate, choose real estate as a career choice, or because of flexibility, because they can work part time, because they're managing a family, they're managing all these things, or even retirement. A lot of people at that time, I don't see that too much anymore today, but a lot of people would start second careers in real estate as a retirement choice.
Yeah.
But I was taking a liking to this listing broker. She was fantastic. I worked new construction sites for her for 2 or 3 years and built a clientele that way. I don't live in that area now, but I still are connected to a lot of those people and those developments. And occasionally have sales back up north of Seattle that way. It still takes me up that way. And then eventually, when I relocated to Seattle, I had met my spouse, my spouse, now wife, Val. She had zero interest in living on the north end of Seattle. And naturally, I wanted to be with her. So I relocated. And for a while, I commuted back up that way and eventually changed offices. And that's when I met you, Jennifer, is when I changed offices and came to the
Okay.
Windermere in West Seattle. I had to reinvent myself. And now I'm in a community where I don't know anybody. I knew a handful of real estate brokers. I knew my spouse and a few of her friends, but I didn't really know anybody in West Seattle. And I just had to slowly, it'd be no different than if I had picked up and moved to Denver. How am I going to, but still wanted to sell real estate? How would I? So I've had to, kind of reinvent myself that way. Now I'm seeing the power of social connection, staying in touch with people and working by referral. That's something I do now primarily, but I didn't do that the first few years of my career. I just didn't understand it.
Right. Yeah, it's a different philosophy for sure. And you happen to marry a pretty social butterfly too, a person who's going to keep your social calendar real full.
You you wouldn't believe this, but I'm actually an introvert. But she
Okay.
breaks me out of my shell. She's the one that
Yeah.
gets me to go to the parties, go to the group meetings, hang out with people. She
Yep.
is my definitely connection to her. I'd be happy just sitting at home watching television and not talking to anybody for 4 or 5 days. Oh, totally. I mean, that would be me.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
hide behind the computer screen or the internet or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not my life. I don't live that at all.
No, you
I'm
don't.
out
You're
and
out and
about,
about.
and
You are. Very much the socialites. We always joke about Dave because we used to joke in the office that Dave and Val go on more vacations than anyone I know, and they see the world, which is amazing. And yet they still both seem to have real plentiful businesses and whatever. So it's a lesson to all of us to vacation more. Be like Dave, vacation more, and more business will come. I like that.
Well, we're a little older now, and we just decided that we're not going to wait to retirement to go see the world. We want to do it where
Yeah,
we can physically do it easily,
yeah,
do the adventure trips. And so we just have found a way to work it into our lives. We do a couple big trips every year and a lot of local or stateside trips throughout that. Val also travels some for work, and I'll tag along
yeah,
as the plus one. And, it's easy to work remotely these days. And so
yeah,
a
for
lot of
sure.
times my clients don't even know I'm out of town. I mean, I'll just
Yeah.
pop out of town for 2 or 3 days and I'm still in touch by phone, email. If I need to, I have a colleague who will step in for me from time to time to show properties or do something for me or whatever. So,
Yeah. I want to go back to something that you talked about because what my experience with you, Dave, is that you have really meaningful relationships with your clients. Maybe not all of them, but when you invest, you are all in and they feel that and then they're all in. My understanding is that your clients are big Dave fans, which they ought to be. You give them, you invest in them, you give them great information, you're careful with it, your attention to detail, and all of that. So it isn't necessarily, in my opinion, about quantity with you, it's about quality with you. Do you think that resonates?
yeah, thank you for saying that. I
Yeah,
do pride myself on, I think of myself as more of an advisor to my client than just a salesperson. Or if I'm working with a
yeah,
buyer, I'll talk them out of buying something if I don't think it's the right fit for them, or
yes.
if I don't think it's going to meet their goals. And sometimes they get blindsided by the wow factor, or they get excited about whatever, and I just will have those conversations. I will go through the process of having the tough conversations with clients so they earn my trust. It's really paid off because they come back to me time and time again when they need to sell and buy again, or they refer me their friends, because what ultimately people want more than anything is to know that somebody's looking out for their best interest.
For new agents on this call, I can't stress what Dave just said more, so I'm just going to repeat it in a different way, and then I'm going to ask Dave another question about it. But this idea that we, especially when you're brand new and you've already calculated your percentage of compensation on this deal that they're about to buy, and you need it, right? You need it to pay your bills. You need it. You got a spouse maybe nagging you saying you haven't sold anything for a while. Whatever's happening, there's pressure in this business to sell, right? To actually sell and to make money at it. But you also know that maybe this isn't the best house for them. So therein lies your conflict, especially when you're new in the business and you're wanting to eat and pay your bills. And so going back, Dave, to what you said is that you'll talk someone out of a house and tell us more about what that like practically looks like, especially if you're a new agent and you're like, oh, but I really need this sale. Like what makes you take the high road, I guess.
Just over time, I've learned to remove myself from the financial part of it. I'm fortunate enough to say that I'm busy enough that I don't have to worry too much about it anymore. But there were certain times in the early years when you're only selling three or four, maybe five houses a year, and you're
Yes.
struggling. And of course, price points were a lot different then. And you do have those moments of like, I really need this to close, or I need this to happen. I just pick a house. I don't care. And
Exactly.
but I saw the bigger picture, that I wanted these people to be happy. I wanted them to feel like they made a good financial decision long term. I wanted them to refer me to their friends and family, colleagues, or whatever. I wanted them to walk away feeling really good about the process, because it was more than just the transaction.
Yeah.
It was the downline of future transactions. And I treat every person that I meet as if they're a family. I wouldn't do this if this was my mom. I would never
Yeah.
do that. And of
Yeah.
course, I don't think of everybody as my mom, but it's how
I
I
see
would.
what you're saying.
I just take that approach.
Yeah.
I would,
Yeah.
or if I was the buyer or the seller right now, what would I want my broker to be telling me? What's I want the truth. I want to know what's really going on in the marketplace. What do I have to do to sell? What do I need to do to buy? And I just have
Yeah.
those honest conversations with them. And I've had people walk away from me, or choose other brokers, and that's just okay. That's their choice. But ultimately, it's paid off for me in the long run.
going to bed every night, waking up every morning, knowing that you've done your best for this person. One of the slogans for the podcast is be the agent you would hire. Be that
Oh,
agent that you'd
absolutely.
say, yeah, they're good. I'd like them for my own. I'd hire me. I'm good at this. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you're starting off, you're probably swimming upstream, you're trying to figure it all out, but there was a point at which, Dave, it turned a corner for you and you started to be able to relax that you were going to close however many houses a year. You weren't worried that you were not going to make it in real estate. Why do you think that changed? And what were a couple things you were doing, do you think, that made that change?
If you look at the timeline back, I started real estate in 2005, so almost 20 years ago, my 20th year. Market was great, but I didn't know anything in the beginning. And then the market changed. We all remember the big economic change that happened starting in 2007. It really hit the Seattle, the Northwest area, 2008. But from 2008 to 2012, everyone struggled. I mean, you'd have listings that were on 6, 8, 9 months. You couldn't sell anything. Boy, if I had my investor brain back then,
No
I
kidding.
would have purchased every house I could find. Those houses have doubled or tripled in value since then. I learned so much. I had to survive. I give a lot of credit to my survivability. To this is when I met my spouse, when I met Val. I can easily say she didn't fall in love with me for money because I didn't have it. She fell in
Uh-huh.
love with me for who I was. But I do sometimes question would I have changed career choices if I didn't have that second income to get by? And neither of us, we, struggle, not I wouldn't say struggle, but we didn't have a lot for a long time. But when the market changed, when the thing came out of that market, I had learned so much about how to actually sell real estate and not just let the market sell it. I learned how to actually really sell a house when you can't sell a house. I learned so that by the time the market changed and came back, it just was so natural. I just knew how to do all things. And when the market upswings like this, you get a ton of new brokers coming into the
Yeah.
into the industry who, God bless them, they don't know anything. And some of them have a very easy time of it the first year or two because the market just sort of did it for them.
Yeah.
Put a sign in the yard, the house has got 6 offers by the end of the day, but they've never learned what it really takes to sell a house, to have a negotiation, to call other brokers, to ask them for feedback, to do all those things that sometimes get to or have a tough conversation with a seller when a property is not selling, to call them every week and say, this is nothing happened this week. This is what, here's what I recommend doing. If you still have the stomach for this, maybe we need to have a price correction. Maybe we need to focus on this. Maybe we need to fix this and this in the house. I think that's had a huge impact for me. And that's probably changed my career a lot from an experience level.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
wasn't afraid of that stuff anymore. I'm not afraid to call my clients. I'm not afraid to call brokers. I'm not afraid to do that.
Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nelson, owner at Scout Real Estate. I started this firm with the vision of doing things differently, with our focus on legendary service for our clients and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other to do higher quality work. If you are interested in learning more about how a small group of like-minded brokers have come together to have some fun while doing a lot of business, reach out to me, 206-227-7966, or email jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. I promise you this, fun is a high priority for me, but so is winning. So if you appreciate those two things, you might be interested in Scout. Looking forward to hearing from you.
One of the things that you're saying is so good, interesting about this is that there's lots of talk in our industry about the market this, the market that, the high interest rate, the low interest rate, you name it, right? There's not enough houses. There's too many houses. There's an excuse always for brokers to say, that's why I'm not succeeding. And I think what you just did in a perfect and beautiful way is to say, despite the market at all, houses are being sold and bought. And so those brokers have figured out somehow, despite all the things that other brokers complain about, how to do that gig and how to make it successful. And once you learn those skills, there's really no stopping you because a majority of agents don't know those skills.
What's removed in the industry today is the easy listings, the easy that just,
Yeah.
everybody wants to buy, everybody wants to sell. And so now you're having to focus really on finding the buyer that really needs to buy, but maybe doesn't realize it yet, or the seller who needs to sell but is afraid to do that and isn't just overtly out there for people to just grab a hold of easily. When you look at, yes, the market is slow. Yes, we can blame interest rates. We can blame the economy. We can blame uncertainty that's out there. But when you just look at the statistics, I challenge not challenge, just ask any broker, just pull up your area. I do this occasionally. I think I've did this at Metropolis a few times when I was running broker meetings. Like, just pull up the number of sales in the city of Seattle, and you're blown away by how many even in a slow market, by how many actual sales there are every month, or even just in a neighborhood. It feels a little slower, but tens of thousands of homes in just your neighborhood. And I don't say neighborhood, I mean like all of West Seattle, or all of North Seattle. And then you look at the dollar volume and you think about the compensation that's paid out, and even some of the biggest producers out there don't even have a fraction of a percent of that. There's a lot of sales that still go on. The business is there. You just have to find it. You have to be willing to go find it. You have to do the things that you need to do to stay connected to people, to be referred to them, to, doing open houses to meet people. We all know that we don't do open houses to sell a house. Sure we do, but the reality, it's just about meeting the neighbors. It's about making connections with buyers who are interested but are not represented yet. And if people aren't willing to do the time, and I think that's where a lot of agents fail the most. They're not willing to put in the time. They like the idea of selling, but where most brokers fail is the lead generation. And that that sounds really salesy, but it's what it is. But it's just, I hate to say things like it's a numbers game, but you need to put in the time. Half of your work really is about filling your pipeline, as we call it, with potential buyers and sellers. And newer agents get excited. Some things just land in their lap. Get a client, and that's all they focus on 24/7. And then it's done, and they're like, wow, now I have nothing else. But
now what? Yeah.
They don't realize that they really, even though they have a client and they're doing their best for them, they need to also be marketing themselves, getting themselves out there for the client they're going to be working with next month, or 2 months down the road, or next quarter or next year.
Yeah, that's the on and in. There's a saying, I know you've heard it, that if you treat real estate like a hobby, it will pay like a hobby. And if you treat it like a job, it'll pay like a job. So there you go. There was a guy, Dave, I think we were at the same office. I can't think of his name. You're probably going to remember it. He wears Hawaiian shirts. He used to all the time, and jeans and flip-flops. And he would take 6 months off and go party and play and do whatever. And then he'd come right back into the scene and sell enough houses to create time for him to take another 6 months off. And this was his schedule. The only reason I bring that up, because I don't think it's a great idea, real honestly. But the reason I bring it up is because he was confident enough in his career, he'd been doing it a long time, to know that when he wanted to create business, he could. And so that whole mentality of what we're just talking about, to say, I've had agents say to me, I want to do 3 more transactions before the end of the year, and they go find them. They just go find them. And so this whole idea of we are the victim of the market, or the victim of no one calling us, is just that. It's a victim game. Get out of your victimness, right? Brokers that are listening, and get into creation. You get to go create it. Isn't that fun? I love it. Besides sort of the social aspect, which now you feel like you're better at than you were at the beginning, what's something that's challenging to you about this industry? What's just hard, that hasn't really gotten easier, that you just sort of have to, do?
Sometimes the emotional aspect of it can be really challenging. As much as you can say, okay, people make decisions the way they make decisions. Where I'm getting at, the emotional aspect is when, someone well ends up choosing to work with a different broker.
Yeah.
And whatever reason, some people just don't want to work with people they know closely for financial reasons. They want to be able to fire that broker if they need to. But the emotional aspect, it kills you sometimes. Like when you would do a far better job for them than the person they hired, because you know who that other person is.
Yep.
Or maybe you don't know, or it's hey, I remember when I was the new broker and I would get clients, but now when I see past clients choosing a broker because, somebody's cousins and now selling real
Yeah.
estate. They've had their license for 2 months and they want to give them a shot. And, it's not that I certainly want that broker to succeed as well. But the logic that they use sometimes it hits you hard. Like, wow, okay. And then of course, 6 months later, you hear through the grapevine that they did not have a great experience or whatever, or they come in
You're
and say,
like,
I wish
haha.
yeah, exactly. No, yeah, you actually can't say that. you have
You
to take
want
the high
to.
road.
You want to. Yeah.
I think for me, that's always been the hardest. I
Yeah.
take things not personally. It's kind of draining. Like, wow, there's somebody I really enjoyed working with before. And it's not even the money. It's not the money at all.
For sure.
It's just the fact that, like, hey, I had a glowing review from you. We stayed in contact. You've given me referrals, and now you're selling your house, and I wasn't your first choice. Or I wasn't even given the opportunity to interview for the job again.
Right.
Just something they made a decision. And this actually just recently happened to me. I just found out a couple of days ago. There was a family that moved into the area probably 7 years ago, and I ended up selling them 4 homes in the area. And I'm now helping one of them sell. And in this process, I've learned that the father, that was the original one that moved to the area, sold their house about 6 months ago. And I didn't know that. And this is somebody I stay in. I had no idea they just moved across town. It was nothing major. They moved out of the area. I don't know why, but I suspect that maybe they were more embarrassed of the financial situation and why they needed to sell. But at least I was just like emotionally, it hit me like, wow, I can't believe they didn't call me first. They know I would take care of them. They know I would help them through this process. It's that kind of stuff, I think, is the hardest thing for me still. Even though after 20 years in, it still hits you.
It still is a punch in the gut. I remember a client who I'd helped many times, like 4 or 5 times, similar. And she called me one day and said, I'm going to sell my house, or I put my house on the market, and I found a new construction house on the east side. And the agent of the development where I was buying offered me such a deal to help me buy this house. I had paid no commission, and then like a 1% or whatever. We're not supposed to talk about numbers, but a very discounted rate for listing my house. And I'm so sorry, but that's the direction I need to go. And this is a person who's been to my home many times, who actually was a person who helped us start Metropolis back in the day financially, who's been on my boat to write this, like way connected in. And just it was a gut punch. It was like, oh, what? And again, to your point, it wasn't even about the compensation or the commission. It was like, I thought I had that one. I thought we were good to go. Like I was your realtor for life kind of thing. And I guess that's one of the lessons in this for those listening, is just that we never have it in the bag. We never have it in the bag.
You just never just assume that or take, just.
Yeah.
You need to always be connecting with people and knowing what's going on. And in my cases, I just was out of flow.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the flow of what was really going on in their life.
Yep.
And now obviously I have tons of clients that I'm never going to stay personally involved with. I'm not going to hang out with them, take, for drinks or whatever. They're just not my people. But I should still know what's going on a high level of what's going on in their life, staying a little more connected with them, face-to-face time, do the pop-bys, do the phone calls, whatever. When I'm relying too much on social media, relying too much on internet or printed media, sending them newsletters, things like that, and just thinking, oh, well, I have so many touch points per year. They should remember me when that time comes. But, who knows who wanders into their life that's changed their direction. When I first started, I mentioned that I did a lot of floor time. This is something that a lot of brokerages don't have anymore. But people would just walk into an office and say, "Hey, I'm interested in buying a house." I picked up a lot of clients that way. When I worked up on the north end, worked for Windermere up in Everett, that was kind of my thing. And a lot of these were young single men that worked at Boeing and wanted to buy a house. And good for them. They were 24 years old and they were making money and wanted to buy a house. And when it came time to sell their house 5 years down the road, even though I still connected with them, I still hung out, or I didn't hang out with them, but I knew them, they had picked up spouses, and that changed their world. And their spouse had a cousin, or their spouse knew somebody that was starting real estate or whatever. And as much as they would say, "Hey, Dave, we love you, but I've got to go this direction."
Yeah, you're like, hey, we all know that women typically run real estate transactions, right? We know that's true.
Absolutely.
So you can have the husband on board forever, and it really won't matter if she doesn't like you. So pay attention to the women in that. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Make the connection there too.
Yes, definitely. So I think a lot of, Dave, what you're talking about, which is great for the listeners to hear, is just that balance between on and in, and that we can work in our business and do the inspections and show houses and all of that. But if we're not balancing that with our pipeline, which basically means staying in flow, not just relying on the newspaper you send out, that's a newspaper, the electronic thing you send them, and or the events you may invite them to a couple times a year, but really staying up to date on their life. I remember somebody saying to me that I hadn't been in touch with for a while, yeah, we have 2 kids now. And I literally was like, 2? Did you have twins? They did not have twins. That's how long it had been since I had talked to them. And that was a big, like, pay attention, Jen. These people have already had 2 kids since you talked to them. That's too long. So staying in touch. Let's switch gears now just for a minute before I ask you the last question. And that is, and if you don't have an answer, it's totally fine. But is there anything weird that you've come across in your 22 years? And while you're thinking, I'll just remind listeners of my quick story. As we walk in, we're showing a house, and we go into the primary bathroom, and there's this like glamour shot of this couple, like a 20 by 30 of them naked. Like you can't see all the parts, but enough that listing agent had told them to take down. And so my buyers were just like, wow, okay, well, we got to know the sellers really well on this tour, and it was just super embarrassing. So we come across some strange things in our business, but anything come to mind?
Oh, absolutely. I've had a number of. Usually, it's on the showing the property and
Okay.
walking into something. I've gone into showing a house that we thought was vacant. The house was vacant. We're in the house for 15 minutes, and there was a door back by the front door of the house that was locked. We assumed it was a closet or something. We didn't know what it was. And we're getting ready to leave, and all of a sudden the door opens, and there was a guy living in there. And I mean, there was a
Oh
bed
no.
and whatever, and he's standing there in his underwear. And he's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I'm showing the house." And we're all freaked out. We're all ready to run. And he was a tenant. There was the seller was selling the house. The seller had moved out, but he had a tenant that rented this one room, and that he could use that room. But nowhere in the listing did it mention that there was a tenant in the house.
Oh my gosh.
And the listing broker didn't. And so, of course, all my clients are just weirded out,
Oh
and
yeah.
never returned to that house.
Underwear dude in the closet.
It's the weird things that you come across, the picture on the wall, the things that are just like, whoa, the porn dungeon,
Yes,
the drug
yes.
paraphernalia that's laying
Yeah.
around, the hoarder house or whatever. It's that kind of stuff where the listing broker couldn't have the tough conversation with the
Yep.
seller to
That's
say,
right.
this is what you need to do to
Yep.
really sell this house. Buyers are going to walk in here and go, nope, and walk right
Yep.
out
Yep.
because of something that had nothing to do with the house.
Right. They're going to lose a buyer because of it. We tour as an office every Thursday. Actually, we're leaving here in a little while to go tour houses together because it's fun to do it as an office. You learn a lot from each other. But most of the time, my brokers will hear me say, "Shame on that agent. Shame on that agent." And what I
Oh,
mean is
absolutely.
exactly what you're saying. This is the listing agent's job to prepare the house for market. Even when there's an ugly ass painting on the wall that her mother painted, we have to say, let's keep that safe and move it to storage while we're listing so that, right, we can help buyers want your house. We don't say it like that, but having those hard conversations. That is a
There
wild
are,
underwear guy in the closet. Oh my gosh.
yeah, real estate. There is peaks and valleys when you're in that valley, and you start to wonder if you're ever going to sell a house again. And then you come across a listing where the listing broker has used their cell phone to shoot
Oh,
photographs.
yes.
They
Yeah.
haven't cleaned the
Uh-huh.
house, and all these things. You're like, well, this person got a job. This person got a client. It can't be that hard.
That's true. It's a good reminder, isn't it? Oh my gosh, if they could do it, I certainly could do it, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good perspective. All right, Dave. So last question as we finish up here is we are for listeners, you might be listening to this later, so I'm trying to give you context. We are at the end of November in 2024. There's lots of people predicting a couple things about next year. I myself have tuned into a couple of those or gone to different breakfasts or economists talking, but I'd love to hear Dave Warren's thoughts on what 2025 is going to be like.
My bold predictions for 2025.
Yeah,
I wish I
yeah.
had gone. Was that just earlier this week? The Matthew Gardner
It was yesterday.
yesterday. I wish I had gone to that. I love hearing his talk, and it would have certainly given me perspective. So without the actual real economist in the room, I will give you my bold prediction for 2025. I think it's going to be a lot like 2024. 2024 was an election year. There's always uncertainty. There's that aspect of it. So it slows the housing industry down. A lot of buyers don't know where the economy is going to go. We really were excited back in the late summer when the Federal Reserve was talking about cutting the interest rate. We thought that would be this big boon, and eventually that would trickle down to mortgage interest rate. That hasn't really happened. I don't see that happening in 2025 now, where we really thought, well, by spring it would be down at least a full percent or maybe more, and this wave of pent-up demand buyers would come back into the industry. Maybe that will happen still. I don't think so. We also have an incoming federal administration that is proposing a lot of economic changes that, at least on paper, seem to be inflationary. And that will have a huge impact, I think, ultimately on the housing industry. If we're talking about putting tariffs on things that we import into the country, a lot of our building materials come from China and come from Canada. That's a huge tariff. It's going to cost more to build houses. Houses aren't going to get cheaper. A lot of what we hear is like, we need to build affordable housing. Well, here we just slapped ourselves with a 10% increase in just building materials. Labor is not getting cheaper. We live in a very expensive area, and good for those people. They need to earn a living wage. It just gets expensive. I don't see that happening. Do I want it to happen? Absolutely. I want the market to turn back. I want it to be back to where it was when it was gangbusters and everyone having it, but I want there also to be a lot of homes available. I want to, what I haven't experienced in a long time is just a balanced market.
Oh, no kidding.
When was the last time you really felt like, the market right now is slow, but we still have a 2 months or less supply of homes on the market. It's still technically a seller's market, even though it's slow.
Yep.
I want sellers that have been waiting for 4 or 5 years to sell a house and not doing so because it didn't make sense financially. When you have a mortgage rate of 2.9%, and then you're in a larger house than you need, but to sell it and to buy something half the size would cost you more. Why would you do that?
Yep. One of the things Matthew said yesterday, 80% of mortgages are sub 5% interest rate.
Yeah.
Let that one sink in. So no wonder, right? People aren't running to sell their house. But anyway, keep going.
I think brokers need to learn how to work with assumable mortgages. I think if you're going to, the buyer who can qualify and purchase a home where they just taking over the mortgage payment from a seller who needs to sell. Of course, there's challenges with that as well, because some of these people have a serious amount of equity in those homes now. And most of your buyers don't have that kind of equity to pay off the seller for the equity in the house and then just take over the mortgage. But I think that we'll see more of that. I really want to be excited. I don't think it's going to be doom and gloom. I think it's going to just be a little bit more status quo until things shake out, until the uncertainty has left the room and people say, okay, here's our new reality. We need to adjust to this. We see here in Seattle, most of our new construction is infill. It's building, ADUs or DADUs in buildings on back of homes, where it was just a single family residence is now a duplex or triplex or subdivided into condos. The only thing we're ever going to get back to affordability is start building, massive condo complexes, or that type of thing. And then, of course, you can argue what is affordable and what's affordability. It's different for everybody. But if you take the average income in the greater Seattle area and what's affordable to them, it's impossible to build that house today. That would make sense. I mean, it's, you're paying $400 to $500 a square foot for construction costs. 1,000 square foot houses without even the land is $400,000 or $500,000 to build it. And then you throw the land value in there, $700,000, $800,000. Is that affordable? For most people, no. For a lot of that entry level, it's not. The only thing that really pencils is the luxury market.
Yeah.
And so, I can understand why people get upset with builders for focusing on the luxury market, but they have to make a profit also.
Yesterday, we also heard that the median priced home, you need to make $280,000 a year in Seattle for an income to afford the median priced home. And get this, you need to make $471,000 a year to afford a home on the east side for the median price of an east side home. It's just insane. Anyway, yeah, all things considered. Well, Dave, I am so grateful for your time this morning, and it's been really fun to talk with you. I'm just thank you for your time and expertise, and I'm glad to know you and work alongside you. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's been my pleasure. I've been a longtime listener to the show, and I love hearing about people I know and their backgrounds and their perspective of things. And I feel fortunate that I've had the opportunity to be one of these people now on the show.
Thank you so much for listening into Pocket Hours. I hope this has been interesting, fun, made you laugh, made you think, spurred you on to do and implement some new things in your business. I appreciate your time and hope this has been a good use of it, period. Now, go be the agent you would hire.